Hello folks, well today it's an HMV Stereomaster 2032 and we've got Simon here today, so if you hear talking in the background, it's Simon. We put it on the bench in the chapel. Yes, there's the organ. And this tripod could do with being taller, but it isn't. So when we look at the control panel of this, here's what the confusion can be. I'll lift up the lid. Oh, it's snapped off the thing, so we won't put that back. So there's going to be some woodwork to do. It's Garrard 3000. It should be a 90 AHC cartridge. There should be a centre spindle, but I can't see it. It's in this bag. Yeah. This was a donation very kindly from a gentleman at Grimsby. So thank you to that gentleman. And of course, when we sell this on, it all helps with keeping the repeater running with the commercial site rental costs. So here's the thing, this isn't a radiogram, it's a record player only. And people get this wrong when they try and sell these things on YouTube. They describe them as a radiogram. And here we go. On, off, volume. Wonder why volume's at full. Probably because it doesn't work. Bass, flat to centre, treble to centre, mono, stereo. Then you've got the mode selector, gram, tape, radio. Doesn't mean it's got a built-in radio. What it means is there's a socket in the back and you've got a 5-pin DIN socket connected to the tape. It's bi-directional, so you can play through this system or record from this system. And of course, it doesn't mean you can only use a tape recorder with it. Of course, you can use all kinds of other things. Radio position switches in a 3.5mm mono jack connector. It's intended for plugging into an HMV transistor radio of similar vintage. They had a tape outlet for going into a Stereomaster. It is mono, and people think, oh, I can plug my iPod, Z-Pod, K-Pod through this, but it's going to be mono. So why would you do that? When anybody normal would actually buy a 5-pin DIN lead, wouldn't they? That knob's off. That doesn't mean that it's a problem. So what we're going to do, and here's the thing, you never switch them on, because we did an experiment. It's back on the back catalogue. We bought an HMV 2040, which is a later model than this, and we brought it back from having bought it off eBay. We switched it on with time lapse, and after 20 minutes it blew up. That was just to prove the point. So that was, but of course we changed all the capacitors, and that was the end of the problem. So what we're going to do is we'll put it on one end, we'll take the bottom off. So now we've got it underneath, and we've got the legs for this. It says the model number is 2032, so the model number is underneath. If it was a radiogram, there'd be an aerial connector to connect the internal dipole. The speakers are sealed speakers, so they have to remain sealed, not... if you try running the speakers in free air, they will of course pop. The speakers were made by EMI especially for these. They were a custom item. I've never had to change speakers on any of these earlier ones, only the 2412 where they used the foam rubber surrounds, and we do have to change those. But they're not expensive speakers. At the end of the day, these are 7 watts output per channel. So we're going to whip the lid off. So the next thing I'm doing is I'll move the camcorder a bit closer, and we'll try and zoom in. So we've got a P-clip here, 2 P-clips holding the mains lead in, so I just need to pop those out, Phillips type screws. I can see 2 blown up capacitors on the amplifier, and this morning I was looking for a circuit diagram. I ended up getting the service manual from Paul Spenning's website for $1.99. And back in, some years ago, we shared quite a lot of circuits with each other, but I'm not going to rattle his cage. Just pay the $1.99 and get on with it. They've been parted before with insulating tape, so we've done that. So that side speaker, this has been parted and done with insulating tape. We'll be putting chop blocks on there. This is soldered in on this model, so what we want is some side cutters. We're simply going to cut it off, not unsolder it, there's enough lead, and cut it off, and then we'll get a fresh termination for that. And this unplugs, probably. There we are. But it doesn't because it's of the motor, so because of the switch. So we'll put that back in and we will snip that off from the primary of the transformer and put that back later. So we disconnect it. Need to get the chassis out. So just to be clear, make sure we're on the camera. We've disconnected the switch and the motor by simply cutting the wire. We'll be resoldering that to the transformer. The left hand speaker, the right hand speaker at the top, we're already parted and taped together. We've just snipped through the pickup and we'll re-terminate that, and Bob's your uncle. Now there's 2 screws in the top. I allow 40 minutes to service these. Can we keep the card in position? I don't know. I don't think we can on this one. So there's a ventilation thing at the back. So I'll just pop the screws out of that. We'll pause the video while I do that. Okay folks, so I've got it out. As it turns out, when I looked at the service manual, it actually says on the service manual, chassis removal. You've got those 2 on the top which I took out, and then it says there's a 2BA bolt. It's in a inconvenient position, so you need a nut runner to get that out. So hopefully the chassis will just push out in its entirety. There we go, that wasn't too hard. So just thread the thing through, put this to one side. And there we are with the chassis. So I bumped into some forums which I'm just not into, and it's the I've got a hum on one channel, la di da di da. Right, well, here's the thing. These capacitors were problematic within 3 years. That one's exploded, and one of these, that one's got a crack in it, that's got a crack in it, so it's not going to work, is it? So it's not that difficult to change the electrolytic capacitors, and so we'll be doing a blanket job with the electrolytic capacitors. This is 4500, the main smoothing capacitor. You're going to have a hum if that isn't changed. We'll be changing that, we've got that in stock. And then on the power regulator board, then of course the capacitors on there. So on the main, the capacitors aren't expensive, but there's a rider to what I'm telling you about not being expensive, and that is this. If you look up these, 750 microvolts. Now they only need to be 18 volts, I think, but we can't get 18 volts. So, but these fit because time's moved on. They're never going to fail again, are they? Made in Japan. I think they're the best part of £8. So 814-3300 from RS, 2 of those. And then the main filter electrolytic here, 47,000, which is 4,700, sorry, which is, we're replacing 4,500, which is a value you're not going to get today. And we're buying these at 63 volts instead of whatever that is. We'll come to that when we take it out. Because I think it's 35 volts, so we're doubling that virtually, not because we want to, but because otherwise the component is so thin that we're going to have to start a different mounting arrangement. So although this is fatter than the one I'm about to put in, we can adjust this P-clip, and you'll see. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to change all these capacitors, and that will take 40 minutes. Okay, so we're back with this. I've done the capacitors, so... Oh, I haven't done that one. I've forgotten about that. So we've got that to do. So the 2 on the stabiliser board, all these. I was just going to check the mains lead, that we've got the right kind of plug on it. just pop the viewfinder around so I can see where the camera is. There we go. So he's got a 2 amp fuse in there, and that's absolutely ideal. They're more hard to come by. It's a legal plug, so it's got the shrouded pins, and it's been in Grimsby, so there you are. I think the other precautionary thing we're going to do is we'll put some, probably put some cleaner on. Do you know what, Simon? I think if we, as a temporary measure, connect this to the speakers with some wire, we'll find some wire and we'll connect it so it's on the bench, because I want to check the stabilised power supply that it's the right number of volts before actually putting it back in the cabinet.
Workshop anyway.
Yeah, we'll soon find some, so that's all right. So we'll come back to the video in a bit. All right, folks. Well, we're back. Having changed that capacitor, I drilled out one of the P-clip holes, and Bob's your uncle. We've put a bit of extended wire onto this so we can run it up on the bench with it connected to the speakers in the product. Normally I'd use external disco speakers, but it all has to be got out and put back again, so we'll do it this way. I check the, yeah, we've done that. So we're going to plug it in, see what happens. Switch it on, see what happens. We have got a switch on thump from at least one channel, so that's good news. Yeah, we're not cleaned them yet, have we? So I want it in. No, it's not. So what we want.
Oh, it's glowing very dimly now. It's flickering a bit, so it's.
Yeah. Anyway.
Probably a loose connection.
Worry about that in a moment. I just want to see whether we've got anything. We're on gram, so if I touch the input wire.
There it is. Bit iffy, that could be the volume control. That's the right channel's working. Yeah, that's probably because you switched to mono.
I'm purposely, yeah.
So the potentiometer's a bit tricky then for the volume, is it? I guess that's why the volume was left turned up full, because it was only working.
Well, it won't be working at all with all those blown capacitors. It's a bit weak on that channel, but we don't know why that is at this stage. So what we normally would do is to put a cassette recorder in and play something on the cassette recorder through the auxiliary input. I think what we're going to do though is put some switch cleaner on that volume control, if there's any across here. But because this isn't a workshop, chances are...
Is that it? Or is that lubricant?
No, that's not it. No, well, just for now, we'll waggle the volume control.
Are the treble and bass controls affecting anything as well, are they? Because they might be a bit rogue.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll turn it off for now. Just pause the camcorder and we'll set up a cassette recorder. Right folks, well it's evening now, we're going to have to bring this into a part 1. Because the next stage, we don't seem to have the correct performance on the left hand channel, we seem to have got correct performance on the right hand channel from that very basic stick your finger on it kind of exercise. And of course this may have got a malfunction either caused by running it with Duff capacitors or some other kind of malfunction with it being germanium. So that needs looking into. Now my next course, what we do, as you've looked at these videos before of doing the Stereomasters, is I will then plug a realistic cassette deck into the external input there, and then we'll see what it sounds like. I can also, of course, if I've got a fault, inject a 1 kilohertz tone into there and we can look at it on meters. So I had intended part 1 being entirely doing the electronics. We've run out of time and I will need to get on with CB radios because we've got customer repairs in. The other side of that is I don't know where I've put the cassette recorder which I use. So where have I put it? The realistic cassette player? I don't know. We'll have to go looking for that. The trouble is I've got the test tapes in you know, with it. So there we go. So we'll bring it to a close. You've seen part 1 now. And in part 2 we'll hopefully finish electronics off. We'll have a look at that turntable, which may or may not have had some lubrication done. So thank you for watching part 1 of the HMV Stereomaster 2032 from 1967-68.